Hello everybody, I'm JackieKCooper, and today, instead of an entertainment report per se, I am going to continue telling you the story of my adventure in California when I started trying to be on a quiz show. And if you haven't watched the first part, which is on my YouTube channel, you might want to pause this, go back and watch part one so you'll be up to date. Just go to, where we posted the link for you to do that, and you can watch that and then just slide right into this segment, which is part two. And I ended part two. I think I had just gone in and talked with one of the producers of the shows and had gotten an indication that the show I was being considered for was one called The Joker is Wild. And The Joker is Wild ran for several years. This was back in 1981. I think I said 82 last time, but I've done more research and gone back. And I taped these shows in March of 1981, and then they told me it would be 6 weeks until they would live, be not live, but would air, and that would have put it somewhere in May of 81. But after I talked to the producer and gave him my southern accent of, I lived in Georgia, Jimmy Carter was president, Ronald Reagan got elected, I moved to California, that was my shtick. They said, thank you very much. If we decide to continue on with you doing the show, we'll be in touch. If not, thank you very much for cooperating. So I left LA and went back home to Redlands, California, not knowing if I'd ever hear from them again. Not really having any indication of whether I would hear from them again. Really the only positive thing I'd had was that I'd made it through the general knowledge test, and also for whatever reason they liked my southern accent. And so I felt like I had those two things going against me, but I also knew that there was a lot of competition, and you don't really know exactly what they're looking for. But 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a call, and it was like, hey, we want you to come back to LA, and we want you to do a run-through of the game. So, got permission to take off from my job, took the day off, drove back down from Redlands to Los Angeles, and went to the floor in the building that they told us to, was met there, and there were maybe 14 of us gathered there. I don't know if there were this 14, and there was another group coming in with another 14 or whatever, but they met us and they said, okay, what we want to do is just do an abbreviated run-through of the show, The Joker is Wild. And they explained the format about it. You'd be up against one person. You would have to, first person to reach a certain number of winnings would be the winner of that round. They would go over to the board. You would spin the board. You would possibly win prizes. You always wanted, if Joker came up, then you won a special prize. If the devil came up, then that meant that ended that round. Then you would go back, if you were the winner, like you said, of the round, you take them another challenger. And then, of course, if you lost in a round, then you were through for the time. But they just wanted to give us a brief, idea of what it was like to go through the game show. So they had 14 people, and they said, okay, so-and-so and so-and-so, you will be our first two contestants. And they went up and they asked them questions and went through it, and they competed and won. And then they didn't say, okay, anybody get to another round. And they said, okay, the next two people are so-and-so and happen to be me. And so went up there and they asked the first question. I didn't have a clue. Person got it. Asked the next question. I didn't have a clue. Person got it. Asked the next question. I didn't have a clue. Person answered it. I mean, we went through the number of questions to, for a game, and I hadn't answered a question. So it was a bad day. I just couldn't think. You have those days. So and I thought, I'm killing myself here. I'm dying. Come on, snap to it. But they ran through another two, and everybody was doing good. Answering at least one question or two questions. They got through the 7 groups, and they said, "Okay, Jackie, you didn't answer a single question. Let's try you again with Fred." So we go up there. They asked the questions. Fred got it right. I didn't have a clue. Asked a question. Fred got it right. I didn't have a clue. We went through all those questions, and they said, "You still haven't answered a question." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And they said, "Okay, Fred, sit down. We're just going to ask you, Jackie, some questions, and we're going to get at least one good answer out of you." This is the truth. And they said, "Okay, da-da-da-da-da-da." I didn't have a clue. Ask me another question. Come on. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Didn't know. I mean, I couldn't even pretend to know. I couldn't even give a wild stab. I was that out of it. And finally, I don't know what they asked. But they asked. And I said, such and such. And it was the right answer. And they said, "Finally, we are so glad." We'd hate for somebody to come down here and say, "I never got a chance to answer a single question." You got your chance, and you answered one single question out of 60. You finally got one right. And I did. I thought, well, this has ended my career, my quiz show ambitions, because they're going to think I'm the dumbest human on the planet. And why would they waste time with me? So they did the same thing. They called it up, and said, "All right, Jackie, we appreciate you coming in. If we decide to pursue it, we'll be in touch. But otherwise, thank you for participating." And I thought, that is my kiss off from Joker's Wild, from my chance to be on TV, my chance to be on the quiz show. I felt like I had blown it completely. So I went home. There I was home. I had to tell my wife, tell my kids, I didn't do too good. They asked me all these questions. I didn't know any of the answers. I don't know what went wrong. I just had a bad day. They were like, "What?" I don't think I'm going to be on a TV quiz show. But a few days later, I got a call, and they said, "We want to invite you to come down and be on the TV show taping of The Joker is Wild." And I was amazed. I really thought, well, you've gotten the wrong person. You got me confused with Fred, who knew the answer to everything. But they didn't. They and then they said, "Okay, we tape 5 shows at one time. So you need to bring 3 different sets of clothes, pants, jacket, shirt, tie, whatever, for 3 days. And if you happen to go over 3 days, that would be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday show, or then you could start back with the outfit you wore on the first day." So, and they said you can't have striped shirts, you can't have any kind of striped jacket, you can't wear white shirts because they don't pick up well on color TV or whatever. I mean, they had a bunch of limitations of what you could wear. Now, I didn't have an extensive wardrobe, but I had friends who were about my size, so I borrowed, what I needed if necessary. But I took my little, wore one outfit, took 2 others with me, and went down to Hollywood and, was going to tape the quiz show, The Joker is Wild. Well, the first thing they did is they ushered us into a room where we would, be waiting, and there were probably, 20, 25 people there. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're taping 5 shows, and there may be 3 or 4 contestants on the show. So at the most, you would be using up 20 people for all 5 shows. And there were like 25 or 30 of us. What happened to those others? And I asked somebody, I said, the numbers don't go up right. Are there some of us who aren't going to be on the show? And they said, yeah, we just pull names at random and use up, we have to have spares in case something happens. But, there could be a case where at the end of the week, we've only used up, 15, 16 names, and the rest of you would be sent home. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to end up in that category. But I will say this, they had a huge table of food, and I always like to eat. And we had all of this food to sit there and eat while we watch the taping of the show. And they did as they said. Jack Barry was the host, and they would come in and say, okay, so-and-so, the returning champion is here from last Friday's show. So you come out and you go up against him. And then you would watch them compete. And we watched Monday, we watched Tuesday, we watched Wednesday, and then they took a break. And then we watched Thursday, and I'm still sitting there, and they're not calling my name, and I'm just eating. And then we get to Friday, and they call the first name, and he goes out. And then the second round comes, and they call the name, and he goes out. And then it's the last round, because they usually did like 3 rounds in a show. And they said, JackieKCooper. And so I stepped out, ready to go. Went out, Jack Barry says, and here we have, JackieKCooper from Redlands, California. And Jackie, tell us what you're doing in California. And I said, yeah, my name's JackieKCooper, and I was living in Georgia, and Jimmy Carter was elected president, and I liked living in the state where the president was from. So when we elected Ronald Reagan, and he was from California, I decided to move to California. And everybody laughed, and Jack Barry laughed and said, that's a great story. And he said, whoops, we've run out of time. Would y'all be available to come back for our next show? And of course, the champion and I looked at each other and said, yes. And so the show ended. And I went off and they said, okay, you're guaranteed you're going to be on the next show. So on such and such a day, I think it was on a Tuesday, come back at such and such a time and see how you do on the quiz show, The Joker is Wild. And so on the next installment, I will tell you about my time actually being on the show. But this was the second story about how you go through increments and make it to that point where you walk out and you're part of the show. Hope you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying telling it. Like I said, it happened. I taped these shows in March of '81. I think they aired in May of '81. If any of y'all have any access to old files or tapes or whatever and can track it down, I'm stupidly taped over my copy, and so I don't have it. I found articles that, about me being on the show, never give a specific date, but newspaper articles, because newspapers, locally in Georgia covered it, the Redlands paper covered it, different things. So that's the best information that I have. So I hope if you get a chance that you will, see if you can track it down and let me know. But for today's entertainment rundown, this has been JackieKCooper telling you a story.